Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, and joining me today is Jane Slater once again. Jane, thanks again for coming on. Glad to have you back.
Good to see you. I know we've had a little bit of a delay in my travel schedule and some of our work obligations, but always good to do a show with you.
And I had a kid, too, kind of threw a wrench in the plans overall.
Good for
Also, the Cowboys offense is suddenly struggling since we've been gone, as they've not really put together a consistent game outside of, I think, the Falcons one back in Week 10. So I wanted to spend some time trying to figure out what's going on and what's gone wrong with this Cowboys offense today. Fair or not, I think it often begins with the quarterback, Dak Prescott. What are your thoughts on how he's played in this down stretch for the entire offense?
I think it's fair to say he's looked a little off. I don't know if that has to do with the injuries. I don't know if that's had to do with some of the changes on the offensive line. I don't know if that's had to do with not having Ezekiel Elliott be at 100% or not having Amari Cooper for those 2 games. But the timing has been off with some of his receivers, and so it's hard to say if he's overthrowing, if it's them knocking off some rust. But the rhythm just hasn't been there from the first 6-game stretch to start the season when they were 6-1.
I think there's a lot of different reasons why the offense is having issues. I don't think it's one little switch will suddenly fix everything, but we'll look at all the different reasons. Dak Prescott's certainly a part of that. Feels like at times he's not trusting his offensive line, especially the interior to an extent, which we'll come back to later on.
Would you?
No, not really. The musical chairs, because continuity mattered at the beginning of the year, and now it doesn't, which doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense to me. But we'll come back to the offensive line. I also want to discuss Kellen Moore and the play calling here, as there's been plenty of hand-wringing, which, to be fair, when the play calls work, everyone's happy. When it's not, it's bad play calling. It's not always that cut and dry, but that seems to be the trend right now. What's going on with the play calling internally?
You know, I think when we saw this team having a lot of success, it was back in 2016 when this offense was predicated on the run. But I've argued to a lot of people, you were able to run the ball effectively when you had Travis Frederick under center, when you had, Zach Martin there, and Tyron Smith wasn't really dealing with the injuries that we've seen in recent years. It's been hard to run the ball. Now, with that being said, you see a 58-yard run from Tony Pollard and say, well, why does he only have 7 carries to Zeke's 13 when Zeke is clearly not 100%? That is a fair question. Why are we not seeing more of Tony Pollard? And I'm not saying see more of Tony Pollard because I think he's necessarily a better back. I think he's fresher. I think he's got a little bit more of a burst. But they are, it feels like, forcing Ezekiel Elliott right now when that right knee is clearly not doing well. And you saw that really live against the New Orleans Saints when we saw his longest run was 10 yards in the fourth quarter.
And then even that run, he didn't look right. He almost looked like he was limping a little bit. Like he didn't have the explosion we saw at the beginning of the year. It looked like he was like, okay, I'm going to get my yards. I'm going to get out of bounds as well. He just doesn't look quite right. And we'll come back to Zeke more in depth here. But first, I want to ask you guys a question here. What is your panic level right now over the offense overall? Scale it for me, 1 to 10. 1 being you're not worried at all. They're going to get right. Don't panic at all. 10 being you're freaking out. You've lost all confidence in Kellen Moore, Dak Prescott, and everything. This is the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get the ad break here on YouTube, head down to the comment section. Scale it for us, 1 to 10. I said us that time, not me. That's a big time win. Back to Elliott.
See, we're in a rhythm at this point in the season. Why aren't the Cowboys?
Yeah, exactly. Back to Elliott here. He's pretty clearly injured, right? He's just not right.
No, he's not. And if you've watched him in the last couple of games, the way he kind of skirts away from the trainer, how he talks about how he'll play through it. You know, Jerry Jones said that, it is 10 days. Now, keep in mind, they had 3 games in 12 days. That's tough when you're battling through a right knee injury. And so the conventional wisdom over there at the Star in Frisco is that 10 days of rest, Zeke will be good to go. But I probably would have sat him against the Saints, given how hampered the Saints were. They didn't have their 2 starting defensive ends. They didn't have Alvin Kamara, which is really their only offensive threat. I mean, I wasn't talking enough about my Texas Longhorn alum, Lil Jordan Humphrey, who I should have known could have gotten a touchdown against the Cowboys. But my point is they were a hampered team. I get the importance of getting a win, especially coming off that overtime loss to the Raiders. But now we're talking divisional games as we head into this month. And I don't see them sitting Zeke against Washington, especially when you consider the 2-game lead that the Cowboys have, which feels like it's getting smaller and smaller. You've got to, of course, play the Philadelphia Eagles. You've got to play the Giants this month, and you've got the Cards. But I think the window of sitting him is probably over. You're going to really need him through December and then, of course, the postseason. So they're going to battle it out. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's enough internal talk in that building where it's, we need to run the ball, we need to do it effectively. Maybe we need to give the load to Tony Pollard a little bit more.
Is that disagreement from a just pure coaching staff perspective? Is it position coaches, head coach, coordinators above that level? Where's that disagreement and debate kind of going down at?
Yeah, I think there's an internal debate. I think there is a deference to Zeke because he's playing so hard, and you gave him the $90 million contract extension. But I don't think that they're stubborn enough that they're going to, Bobby and I talked about this on one of our shows when we do the Boys and Girls show with Jason Witten. It felt like they forced it. I don't see them forcing the Zeke thing. This staff has shown us so far they're giving deference to competitiveness, to playmakers. I mean, we're seeing that all along the offensive line, but I think they're going to get smarter in the way that they utilize Zeke, knowing how important he can be to them in the postseason. So I think if we see a little bit more Tony Pollard, it's that line of thinking, which is what we've seen from Mike McCarthy this season. Let's think of the bigger picture in terms of the short term.
Oh, you kind of heard from Jane what we think the Cowboys will end up doing, but what should they do with Ezekiel Elliott? Type in P for play him or type in R if you want to rest him instead. Get those votes in for me in the comments section. It is the holiday season, and if you're like me, you don't know what to put on your Christmas wish list because you're bad at that type of thing. Here's some suggestions for you guys. How about a Cowboys jersey? Some of them under $90. Head over to chatsports.com/Cowboys jersey. We'll put that link in both the comment section and in the description. Tons of different players now. Not everyone is under 90. For example, Micah Parsons, a little bit more expensive, but the surefire defensive rookie of the year does have his jersey on there. And if you're not a jersey person, which I understand, how about just some sale items over at Fanatics? Cowboys gear up to 70% off, including a ton of these beanies, which is perfect as the weather gets colder and colder. Chatsports.com/Cowboys will take you into all of these sale items available right now on Fanatics. Both of those links will be in the comment section and in the description. Let's go to the offensive line now, Jane. Jerry Jones at his morning radio show and implied, as he often does, I think much to the chagrin of the coaching staff, that La'el Collins is going to get the start at right tackle. Do you have any updates on that for us?
I think there's still some internal debate in that building about what is the best lineup on offensive line. I don't know if I love some of the in-game adjustments that we see. I think we talked about this maybe 2 weeks ago when they decided, I think it was in one series we saw them switching it up. I get why they moved away from Connor Williams, but I think it's very clear that it's, even though he was penalized so heavily, maybe you don't have the right type of guys right now to necessarily fill his position. Maybe you move Connor back in there. You've established that you've got to move on from him in the postseason, which this is a contract year for him. But I feel like they've maybe messed with this offensive line a little bit too much, which is funny because you keep kind of tongue-in-cheek alluding to it. Well, consistency is key. Yes, you're saying that because Mike McCarthy said it to us and even said, this isn't fantasy football, right? And yet they're playing a lot of fantasy football. I just don't know if Connor McGovern has made a lot of sense over there at left guard for you. I also like him in the jumbo packages. Yeah, I think he gives you a little something on offense. So we'll see what they do with this, and then we'll see if you get Terence Steele back. We should find out about that a little bit more tomorrow. Of course, Wednesday is their big practice day. They were given an extended time off this weekend because they played the 3 games in 12 days.
So I hate that stretch.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get a better sense of that today. But, yeah, I don't know if they're completely finished with this. And they've told us, which is so crazy to me, Tom, they've pointed out to us that just because you play on the right side doesn't mean you can immediately play on the left side. It's like picking up a pen and saying, oh, well, you can use a pen and you can write. Surely you'll be able to do it. It's not that easy. It's the vision. It's the feet. And yet they're playing with it. Yeah, I see them going back to maybe something a little bit more safer as you head into some of these games that mean something.
I would be on board with that. I get kind of making some changes and adjustments since penalty boy Connor Williams had all those issues, but I've been pretty underwhelmed by Connor McGovern. And now the right tackle, I think part of this is the staff likes, as you've mentioned, Terence Steele a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think talent-wise, it's probably still A.L. Collins. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. But I want you guys to pick a right tackle, a question that we've done multiple times this year, and I doubt we'll stop doing at any point. LC for A.L. Collins, TS for Terence Steele. Let's go rapid fire now on some of these injury updates here, Jane. Randy Gregory, now he's not, as we film this, been designated to return yet, but is he going to play this week as the Joneses have been saying that he will?
I'd be shocked if he wasn't. I was told Washington was the return date for a while, and I saw him on the sidelines and warming up with the guys, not warming up with them, so to speak, kind of standing off to the corner, coaching them against the Raiders, against the Saints. He was on the road for that game. He feels like he's been ready to play for the last 2 weeks. So I think he's going to be ready to go, which I think makes it very interesting. What do you do with Micah Parsons? Getting DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory. Hard to believe that these three guys have only played 28 snaps together, and that was one game.
That is kind of crazy. And maybe you put Micah back at off-ball linebacker a little bit more on rundowns, given some issues with Leighton Vander Esch and Keanu Neal to an extent as well. The other big defensive lineman, since the Cowboys have been down 3 of their starters on the D-line for at least a couple of games between Gregory, Lawrence, and Gallimore. Sounds like he's going to be back as well this week.
Yeah, they're going to see how he does in practice Wednesday and Thursday and then make a designation for him then. But feels like they're pretty confident about him. And this was a guy they were very excited about. Of course, he got hurt in the preseason, dislocated the elbow. But they had a lot of excitement for him. Bobby and I have loved him. We've had him on our podcast. Great guy. Works out with the same sort of defensive line coach, Brandon Tucker, that a lot of these defensive linemen do. So, yeah, I heard you off the corner.
Producer Sam said
go
boomer
sooner. Yeah, exactly.
He's having a rough
it
go of
hurts
things
my
lately.
soul as a Longhorn to give him some love. But, yeah, good kid, a lot of upside, and they're hoping a big future in Dallas. But I think this could be the week we possibly see him. If not this week, of course, the next.
And we'll know for sure as the weeks go on, and of course during the game itself. And if you want free Cowboys videos every single day from myself and Jane, and also the Boys and Girls Show with Jane Slater, Bobby Belt, plus our live watch parties, pretty simple, folks. All you have to do is subscribe right now, youtube.com/Cowboys TV, as we inch closer and closer to quite literally doubling up the subscriber numbers of the Cowboys Report against the Washington football team actual YouTube channel. Let's go rapid fire now, really rapid fire, on some more injuries. 3 players here leading off with Blake Jarwin. Any update there?
I could not get an update on him, so hard to say where we're at with old Blake Jarwin. They certainly need a capable Titan in there these days, it seems like.
How about Maurice Kennedy, who's been dealing with that concussion?
I was told that Kennedy feels good, but maybe the coaching staff doesn't yet. So we'll have to wait on that one. Maybe that's a similar thing that we saw with CeeDee Lamb.
Is that like maybe is it the concussion, or is that trying to kind of skirt around the roster number game they've got to play with?
Well, keep in mind, they've got to make room for Tristan Hill this week. They're going to have to make room for Neville Gallimore, Randy Gregory. So, yes, there could be some, I had a co-host used to call it finagling the bagel. So maybe there's some finagling the bagel there.
And how about Donovan Wilson, who I would have been so concerned about if this was his stat line, but they've been okay at safety, which is weird.
Yeah, I have not gotten an update on him either. So before I come in and I do the show, I always put out some feelers, see what I got, but nothing on those two. So that tells me probably not expecting too much from them just yet. Yeah,
that makes sense. I want you guys now to predict the Cowboys' record this year. They are getting closer and closer to securing the NFC East, if, of course, they can beat Washington. So head down to the comments. Let me know what you think the Cowboys' record is going to be this year. You still feeling good about the NFC East this year, Jane?
Listen, Washington's a spoiler. Okay. We've seen that in years past. The fact that they've won 4 straight, and it's the teams that they've beat. You know, the Tampa Bay Bucks is what started the run. Then he beat Cam Newton. I'm talking Taylor Heineke. Then they beat Cam Newton. Then they go and beat Seattle. And then this last one where he had the game-winning drive against the Raiders, who, you know, gave Cowboys some fits. This Washington team, again, referencing old Bobby seems to think they're going to get both. I think they're going to split the series.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. They got the odds up there, which have been kind of all over the place a little bit. I've seen it as high as 5. I think it opened at 4.5. Let's hit Mike McCarthy here, as he should be back as well, right? Which I think will be a nice boost to the team.
Yeah. I mean, I thought they definitely played well for Dan Quinn. And I think they're going to play well for old Mike when he gets back here. And even he said he hated watching this one from home. But, if there's any silver lining, think of how fast COVID has moved through this locker room, Tom. I mean, there's not many that haven't gotten it at this point. So this is now a team that's built for the apocalypse.
Hopefully the Cowboys will stay healthy as the season winds down. Only 5 games left here for Dallas. 2 against Washington, 1 against the Giants, 1 against the Eagles, and the Cardinals. I call it the old NFC East run through there, including Arizona. Jane, thank you again so much for coming on. I'm sure we'll see you in the near future as well.
Always a pleasure. I hope you get some sleep.